The stars looked cold and distant through the viewing window of the Unity's dawn as Captain Jake Morrison stared into the endless black space. His hands gripped the metal railing tightly. In 3 hours they would reach Nexus Prime, the massive space station that served as the home of the Galactic Council. This meeting could decide the future of all humanity. Dr. Lisa Harper walked up beside him, her face showing the same worry that had been eating at everyone on the ship for weeks. She carried a thick folder of documents and research papers. The final reports are ready, Captain? Everything we know about the Council species, their history, their way of thinking. Jake nodded but kept looking at the stars. Do you think it will make a difference, all these papers and facts? Lisa sighed. I hope so. We have to try. The message they sent was clear. This is our last chance to talk. The Unity's Dawn was not a warship. It was built for peace, for diplomacy. Its white halls were filled with meeting rooms, not weapons. The crew of 200 included scientists, translators, and negotiators, no soldiers. That had been the Council's demand, come in peace or not at all. In the ship's main conference room, the human delegation gathered around a large table. Jake took his seat at the head with Lisa on his right. Across from them sat Dr. Kevin Wright, the Secretary of Science, and Ambassador Carol Mitchell, humanity's most experienced diplomat with alien species. Let's go over this one more time, Jake said, opening the folder in front of him. The Council says we're too aggressive. They want us to stop building new ships, close down our military bases, and let them watch over our colonies. Carol leaned forward. They're scared of us. That's what this is really about. We've grown too fast, explored too many worlds. The other species took centuries to reach where we are now. We did it in decades. Dr. Wright shook his head. Maybe we should consider their offer. Peace across the galaxy sounds good. No more wars, no more fighting. At what cost? Lisa asked. They want us to give up everything that makes us human. Our drive to explore, to grow, to protect ourselves. The ship's communication system crackled to life. Captain Morrison to the bridge. We're approaching Nexus Prime. Jake stood up. Time to see what we're dealing with. The bridge of the Unity's Dawn was a quiet place, filled with soft blue lights and the gentle hum of computers. Through the main viewing screen, Nexus Prime came into view. The station was enormous, bigger than any human city. It looked like a giant wheel spinning slowly in space, with long arms reaching out in all directions. Ships from dozens of different species moved around it like insects around a bright light. It's beautiful, whispered Lieutenant Commander Danny Foster, the ship's communications officer. It's a prison, Jake replied quietly. A very pretty prison. As they got closer, Jake could see the different types of ships. The sleek silver vessels of the Valkyrians, the crystal-like structures of the resonance species, the dark angular ships of the hegemony. Each one represented a different world, a different way of life, all now under the control of the Council. Incoming message from Nexus Prime, Danny reported. They're giving us docking instructions? Follow them exactly, Jake ordered. We don't want to give them any excuse to say we're being aggressive. The docking bay was huge, easily big enough to hold 50 ships the size of the Unity's Dawn, but it felt empty, cold. The walls were made of some kind of white metal that seemed to glow with its own light. As Jake and his team walked down the ramp from their ship, they saw a group of aliens waiting for them. The leader was tall and thin, with pale blue skin and large dark eyes. Jake recognized him from the files, Ambassador Zethkar of the Valkyrian species. Beside him stood representatives from several other Council species, all watching the humans with careful, measuring eyes. Welcome to Nexus Prime, Zethkar said in perfect English. His voice was soft but somehow made Jake feel uneasy. I am Ambassador Zethkar. The Council is ready to meet with you. Thank you, Jake replied, trying to keep his voice steady. We appreciate this opportunity to talk. As they walked through the corridors of the station, Jake noticed how quiet everything was. There were aliens everywhere, workers, officials, visitors, but no one was talking loudly or moving quickly. Everything seemed calm and controlled. Your station is impressive, Carol said, trying to make conversation. It is the result of 2,000 years of peace and cooperation, Zethkar replied. Something your species has yet to learn. They entered a huge round chamber with a high ceiling that seemed to go up forever. In the center was a circular table with 13 seats, 12 for the council members and 1 for the humans. The council members were already seated, representing the most powerful species in the galaxy. Jake recognized them from his studies. The crystal-like Quinthara of the resonance species, who could speak directly into minds. The large armored Dekmor of the hegemony, warriors who had given up war to join the council. The floating jellyfish like Kethlin of the Drift, who lived in the gas clouds between stars. Humans, Zethkar said as he took his seat, you have been called here because your actions threaten the peace we have worked so hard to build. Jake sat down in the human chair, feeling very small in the huge room. We came here to talk, to find a way to work together. Quinthara's crystal body flashed with different colors as she spoke. Her voice seemed to come from everywhere at once. Your species expands too quickly. You build weapons when you should build bridges. You fight when you should talk. We explore because it's in our nature, Lisa said, standing up. We build defenses because the galaxy can be dangerous. We fight. Only when we have to. That is the problem, Vekmor said, his deep voice rumbling through the chamber. You think violence is sometimes necessary. True peace means never using force. What about protecting our people? Jake asked. What about defending our homes? The Council protects all species, Zethkar replied. There is no need for individual defense when all are united under our guidance. Dr. Wright leaned forward. What exactly are you asking us to do? Zethkar stood up and activated a holographic display in the center of the table. It showed human space, Earth, the colonies, the trade routes, the defense stations. You will dismantle all military installations. You will stop building warships. You will allow council observers on all your worlds. You will submit all exploration plans to us for approval. And if we refuse? Jake asked, though he already knew the answer. Then you will be cut off from galactic society, Quinthara said. No trade, no communication, no contact with any council species. You will be alone in the dark. The chamber fell silent. Jake looked at his team, seeing his own thoughts reflected in their faces. This was not negotiation, it was surrender. How long do we have to decide? Carol asked. 30 standard days, Zethkar replied. We suggest you choose wisely. The path of harmony is always better than the path of isolation. As the meeting ended and the humans were escorted back to their ship, Jake felt the weight of the decision. Ahead, in 30 days, humanity would have to choose between freedom and survival. But as he looked back at the council chamber, he wondered if there was really any choice at all. The Unity's Dawn undocked from Nexus Prime 3 hours later, carrying with it the most important decision in human history. As they jumped to faster than light speed, heading back to Earth, Jake knew that nothing would ever be the same again. Behind them, the council watched their ship disappear into the stars, confident that the humans would make the right choice. After all, everyone always did in the end. The Unity's Dawn arrived at Earth exactly 18 hours after leaving. Nexus Prime, Captain Jake Morrison had barely slept during the journey home. He kept thinking about the cold voices of the council members and their impossible demands. Now, as he looked down at the blue and white planet below, he wondered if this might be one of the last times he would see Earth as a free world. President Maria Santos was waiting for them at the orbital station above Earth. She was a tall woman with gray hair and tired eyes that had seen too many difficult decisions. As Jake and his team entered the meeting room, she stood up and shook each of their hands. Tell me everything, she said simply. For the next 2 hours, Jake and his team described their meeting with the council. They played recordings of the conversations and showed the holographic images the council had used. When they finished, the room was silent for a long moment. 30 days, President Santos said finally. They gave us 30 days to decide between slavery and death. Maybe it's not that simple, Dr. Wright said. Maybe we can find a middle ground, some way to compromise. Admiral Nicole Thompson, who had been quiet until now, leaned forward. She was the commander of the Human Defense Fleet and had spent her whole life protecting Earth and its colonies. There is no middle ground here. I've been studying the Council for 20 years. They don't compromise. They control. She activated her own holographic display, showing star maps and ship movements. I've been tracking Council activities in sectors near human space. They're already positioning ships at key points. This isn't just about making us peaceful. They're preparing to make us prisoners. General Patrick Hayes, a big man with scars on his face from the border wars, nodded grimly. The Admiral is right. I've seen this before on a smaller scale. First, they demand you give up your weapons. Then they demand you give up your freedom. Then they demand you give up everything that makes you who you are. Dr. Amy Rodriguez, a political scientist who specialized in alien governments, had been taking notes throughout the meeting. I've been researching what happened to other species that faced similar choices. The results are not encouraging. She stood up and began pacing around the room. 3 species in the past 500 years were given ultimatums similar to ours. The Kelthani and the Vorlok both submitted. They're still alive, but they're not really free. Their governments are controlled by council advisors. Their people can't leave their home systems without permission. They've become shadows of what they once were. What about the third species? President Santos asked. The Norlok, Dr. Rodriguez said quietly. They refused to submit. The council didn't attack them directly. They didn't have to. They cut them off from all trade, all communication, all contact with the outside galaxy. Within 50 years, the Norlok civilization collapsed. Their people scattered, their worlds went dark. Some say a few still survive in the Outer Rim, but no one knows for sure. The room fell silent again. Finally, President Santos spoke. What are our options? Admiral Thompson stood up and walked to the window overlooking Earth. We have 3 choices. We can submit and become slaves. We can refuse and probably die, or we can prepare to fight. Fight the entire Galactic Council? Dr. Wright asked. That's suicide. Maybe, Admiral Thompson replied. But I'd rather die fighting than live on my knees. Over the next week, the debate raged through every level of human government. In the Senate, politicians argued about duty and survival. In the military, officers discussed tactics and possibilities. In the colonies, settlers wondered if they would be cut off from Earth forever. Engineer Commander Ryan Mitchell worked day and night in the research labs beneath the lunar surface. He had been developing new technologies that might help humanity survive on its own. His team had made breakthroughs in energy production, faster-than-light communication, and defensive systems. The Council thinks we need them, he told his assistant, Dr. Susan Clark, but maybe we're stronger than they think. Dr. Clark nodded as she looked at the test results on her screen. Our new fusion reactors are more efficient than anything the Council species use, and our communication arrays don't rely on their networks. We might be able to survive isolation. Meanwhile, Admiral Thompson was meeting with her fleet commanders. Captain Danny Foster of the exploration ship Pathfinder had been secretly mapping routes to unexplored sectors. Captain Julie Anderson of the defense cruiser Sovereign had been testing new ship designs. Commander Ben Rodriguez had been training crews in tactics that no Council species had ever seen. If we choose to fight, Admiral Thompson told them, we need to be ready for anything. The Council has numbers and experience, but we have something they don't, the willingness to do whatever it takes to stay free. The turning point came on day 23. President Santos was in her office when the emergency alert sounded. Admiral Thompson rushed in with urgent news. They've blockaded New Denver, she said. The Council sent a fleet to surround the colony. No ships in or out, no communications, no supplies. New Denver was a mining colony on the edge of human space. It had a population of 50,000 people, including families with children. The colony's governor, Helen Baker, was a tough woman who had helped build the settlement from nothing. President Santos stared at the star charts showing the Council ships surrounding New Denver. They're trying to show us what isolation looks like. It's worse than that, Admiral Thompson said. They're using our own people as hostages. For 6 days, the Council maintained the blockade. Human ships tried to break through, but the Council vessels were too strong and too numerous. On the 7th day, Governor Baker managed to send one final message through an emergency beacon. The message was short, but clear: we're running out of food and medicine. The Council ships won't let anything through. They keep broadcasting demands for our surrender. Tell Earth we'd rather die free than live as slaves. Don't let them win. Then the beacon went silent. President Santos called an emergency session of the United Earth Government. Representatives from every colony and every nation gathered in the Great Hall. The chamber was filled with worried voices and angry faces. The Council has shown us their true nature, President Santos said as she stood at the podium. They claim to want peace, but they use innocent people as weapons. They say they offer protection, but they threaten those who won't obey. She paused and looked out at the assembled representatives. We have 5 days left to give them our answer. But I think they've already given us theirs. The vote was not even close. By a margin of 3-1, the United Earth Government voted to reject the Council's ultimatum. There would be no surrender, no submission, no acceptance of slavery disguised as peace. That night, President Santos addressed the entire human population. Her speech was broadcast to every world, every station, every ship in human space. She spoke simply and clearly about the choice they faced. We are not a perfect species, she said. We have fought wars, made mistakes, caused pain. But we have also explored unknown worlds, built impossible things, and never stopped trying to be better. The Council wants us to give up everything that makes us human. They want us to stop growing, stop learning, stop dreaming. She looked directly into the camera, her eyes filled with determination. We choose the difficult path of independence over the easy path of submission. We choose the uncertainty of freedom over the safety of slavery. We choose to remain human, whatever the cost. The speech ended with words that would be remembered for generations. To the Council, we say this: we are not your subjects, we are not your slaves, we are human beings, and we will remain free. When the 30-day deadline arrived, Ambassador Zethkar received humanity's official response. It was a single word: no. Within hours, the Council declared humanity a rogue species. Trade agreements were canceled. Communication networks were shut down. Diplomatic relations were severed. The isolation had begun, but as the Council ships moved to enforce their blockade, they found something unexpected. The humans were not running. They were not hiding. They were preparing. The war for human freedom was about to begin. 6 months had passed since humanity rejected the Council's ultimatum. The silence from the galaxy was deafening. No alien ships visited human space. No messages came from the Council worlds. No trade goods flowed between the stars. Earth and its colonies were truly alone for the first time in over a century. The effects of isolation hit some places harder than others. The space station New Houston, which had relied on imports from 3 different alien species, was struggling to keep its life support systems running. Chief Engineer Tony Martinez worked 80-hour days trying to fix failing equipment with spare parts that were running out. We need crystalline processors from the Valkyrians, he told Station Commander Ashley Brown as they stood in the main engineering bay. Without them, the air recycling system will fail within 2 weeks. Ashley looked at the diagnostic reports on her tablet. The numbers were not good. What about alternatives? Can we make our own? Tony wiped sweat from his forehead. Dr. Clark's team back on Earth is working on it, but they need time. More time than we have. Similar problems were happening throughout human space. The colony on Kepler 442b was running out of medical supplies. The mining operation on Titan needed equipment that only the hegemony had previously supplied. The research station orbiting Proxima Centauri was down to emergency power, but the worst situation was at the farming world of Green Valley. The colonists there had been growing food for export to alien markets. Now, with no buyers, they had mountains of rotting crops and no way to pay for essential supplies. Governor Steve Johnson sent desperate messages to Earth, but help was slow. Incoming on Captain Danny Foster of the exploration vessel Pathfinder had been trying to make contact with independent alien species, those not part of the Council. His ship had traveled to the edge of known space, looking for anyone willing to trade or even just talk. What he found was disappointing. At the neutral zone trading post, alien merchants who had once been friendly now refused to speak to him. At the independent world of Telos Prime, the planetary government sent an official message telling him to leave immediately. "It's like we have a disease," Danny told his communications officer, Lieutenant Ben Rodriguez. "Everyone's afraid of us now." Ben was monitoring alien communication channels, trying to understand what was happening. "I'm picking up Council broadcasts on multiple frequencies. They're spreading propaganda about us, saying we're violent, unpredictable, dangerous to be around." The propaganda was working. Species that had never been part of the Council were choosing to avoid humans rather than risk Council anger. The isolation was becoming total. But something unexpected was happening. In human space, the crisis was bringing out the best in people. Engineers who had worked on different projects began sharing their knowledge. Scientists who had competed with each other started cooperating. Military and civilian researchers began working together in ways they never had before. Dr. Susan Clark had been put in charge of a massive research project called Operation Independence. Working out of a secret facility on Mars, she led teams of scientists and engineers from across human space. Their goal was simple: find ways to replace everything humanity had been getting from alien sources. "We're not just trying to survive," she explained to her team during one of their daily meetings. "We're trying to prove that we can thrive on our own." The breakthroughs came faster than anyone had expected. Dr. Rachel Murphy, a young physicist from the Europa colony, discovered that the energy crystals used in Council weapons could be artificially grown using techniques borrowed from Earth's semiconductor industry. Her crystals were actually more stable than the natural ones. Engineer Commander Ryan Mitchell, working with military scientist Colonel Steve Johnson, developed shield technology that could absorb incoming energy attacks and redirect the power back to the ship's systems. It was a defensive weapon that actually made ships stronger when they were attacked. Meanwhile, Admiral Nicole Thompson was implementing a secret program called Operation Lighthouse. The goal was to find other species that might be unhappy with Council rule and could become allies. The program was dangerous. If the Council discovered it, they might see it as an act of war. The first breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Dr. Amy Rodriguez, the political scientist, had been studying intercepted Council communications. She discovered references to something called the Korthek Rebellion, a group of species that had been secretly questioning Council authority. "They're not just unhappy," Dr. Rodriguez told Admiral Thompson during a secure briefing. "They're actively planning resistance, but they need someone to make the first move." Admiral Thompson made a decision that would change everything. She authorized Captain Jake Morrison, recently promoted to Admiral, to make secret contact with the Korthek Rebellion. Using new communication technology that couldn't be detected by Council sensors, Jake sent a simple message to coordinates Dr. Rodriguez had discovered. "We are humanity. We seek friends who value freedom over control. We offer alliance to those who choose independence." The response came 3 days later. It was brief but encouraging. "We are the Korthek Rebellion. We have been waiting for someone with your courage. We will meet." The meeting took place in a remote asteroid field outside Council space. Jake took a small, fast ship called the Swift Arrow. With him were Dr. Lisa Harper and communications expert Lieutenant Commander Carol Mitchell. They had no idea what to expect. The Korthak ship was unlike anything they had ever seen. It was built from parts of different alien vessels, welded together in a patchwork design that somehow looked both desperate and determined, as Jake's ship. Docked with theirs, he felt a mixture of hope and fear. The Korthak leader was a being called Vexstar. He was tall and thin, with 4 arms and skin that changed color when he was excited. His species, the Korthak, had been forced to join the Council 200 years ago when their home world was threatened with destruction. "Your species has done something remarkable," Vextar told Jake as they sat in the meeting chamber of the Korthek ship. You chose freedom over safety. That choice has inspired others. Dr. Harper leaned forward. How many others? 7 species have secretly joined our rebellion, Vextar replied. 2 more are considering it. We have been planning for 50 years, waiting for the right moment. What changed? Jake asked. Vextar's skin shifted to a deep blue color. The Council's treatment of your species showed their true nature. They speak of peace, but they use force to maintain control. They claim to protect freedom, but they destroy anyone who exercises it. The meeting lasted for 6 hours. The Korthek Rebellion shared intelligence about Council military positions and political weaknesses. In return, humanity offered to share their new technologies and tactical innovations. It was the beginning of an alliance that would change the galaxy. When Jake returned to Earth, he brought more than just hope. He brought proof that humanity was not alone in their desire for freedom. The Council's authority was not as absolute as they claimed. There were cracks in their empire, and those cracks were growing. President Santos called an emergency meeting of the military leadership. As Jake presented his findings, the mood in the room changed from desperation to determination. The Council fears us, Admiral Thompson said after hearing the report. They've isolated us because they know we're dangerous to their way of life, but isolation works both ways. While they've been watching us, we've been growing stronger. Engineer, Commander Mitchell presented the latest reports from the research teams. Human technology was advancing at an incredible rate. New fusion reactors were providing more power than ever before. Advanced manufacturing techniques were producing materials stronger than anything the Council had. Most importantly, new weapons and defensive systems were being developed that could match anything in the Council's arsenal. We're not the same species we were 6 months ago, Mitchell said. Isolation has forced us to become better, stronger, more independent. We're not just surviving, we're evolving. The transformation was visible everywhere. The colony on New Denver, which had been used as an example of Council power, was now producing more food and resources than ever before. The mining operations that had struggled without alien equipment were now using human-designed machines that were more efficient than the old ones, but the most important change was in the people themselves. The crisis had united humanity in a way that nothing else could. Old rivalries between nations and colonies had been set aside. Everyone was working toward the same goal, proving that freedom was worth any sacrifice. As the first year of isolation came to an end, humanity faced the future with new confidence. They had survived the Council's punishment and emerged stronger than before. But they also knew that the real test was still coming. The Council would not tolerate their success forever. Soon, they would have to choose between accepting human independence or trying to destroy it. And when that moment came, humanity would be ready. 2 years had passed since the Council cut off humanity from the galaxy. What they had expected to be the slow death of human civilization had become something very different. Human colonies were not just surviving, they were growing stronger. Every day, Captain Brandon Smith stood on the bridge of his research vessel, Discovery, as it approached a massive alien structure floating in deep space. The structure was clearly not made by any Council species. It was organic-looking, with flowing curves and what appeared to be living tissue covering its hull. "Are you sure about this?" asked his science officer, Dr. Julie Anderson. She was studying the readings on her instruments, trying to understand what they were looking at. "The Korthek gave us these coordinates for a reason," Brandon replied. "They said we would find friends here." The Discovery had been on a secret mission for 3 months, following leads provided by the Korthek Rebellion. Admiral Jake Morrison had authorized the mission after receiving intelligence that there were other species willing to work with humanity. Species that had never been part of the Council. As they got closer to the alien structure, they received a communication in perfect English. "Human vessel Discovery, we are the Zephyrian Collective. We have been expecting you." The voice was strange, like multiple people speaking at the same time. Dr. Anderson looked at her captain with wide eyes. "How do they know our language?" We have been watching your species for some time, the voice continued. Your defiance of the Council has been noted with great interest. The meeting took place inside the alien structure, which turned out to be a living ship growing rather than built. The Zephyrians themselves were unlike anything humans had ever seen. They looked like tall, graceful trees with silver bark and leaves that changed color as they spoke. We are not enemies of the Council, explained the Zephyrian leader, who called himself Grovesinger. But we are not their friends either. We exist in the spaces between their control. Captain Smith leaned forward in his chair. Why are you willing to help us? Grovesinger's leaves shifted to a deep green color. Because you represent something new. For 2,000 years, the Council has maintained order through control. But control without choice is not peace, it is stagnation. Your species brings chaos, yes, but also growth and change. The Zephyrians had been secretly providing information about Council movements to the Korthik Rebellion for decades. They knew about Council military positions, political divisions, and most importantly, they knew about the Council's growing fear of humanity. They are planning something, Grovesinger warned. We have observed large fleet movements toward the borders of your space. Ships from multiple Council species are gathering. This is not a patrol, this is preparation for war. When Captain Smith returned to Earth with this information, it sent shockwaves through the human government. President Maria Santos called an emergency meeting of the military leadership and the scientific community. Admiral Nicole Thompson spread star charts across the table in the war room deep beneath the government complex. Red dots marked Council fleet positions, and the pattern was clear. They're surrounding us. Ships from 8 different Council species, positioned at every major hyperspace route leading to human space. General Patrick Hayes studied the formations. How many ships are we talking about? Our best estimate is over 3,000 vessels, Admiral Thompson replied. Everything from scouts to massive battleships. It's the largest military force the Council has ever assembled. Dr. Lisa Harper, now serving as the head of Alien Relations, had been analyzing intercepted Council communications. I've been studying their internal messages. There's a debate happening within the Council. Some species want to negotiate with us, but others are pushing for what they call Operation Cleansing Storm. What's that? President Santos asked. A coordinated attack designed to permanently cripple our space capabilities, Dr. Harper replied. They plan to destroy our orbital shipyards, defense platforms, and any ship capable of faster-than-light travel. They want to trap us in our own solar system. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. This was not just about isolation anymore. The Council was planning to destroy humanity's ability to ever reach the stars again. Engineer Commander Ryan Mitchell had been working on defensive preparations for months. We're not the same species we were 2 years ago. Our ships are faster, our weapons are more powerful, and our defenses are stronger than anything they've seen before. But are we strong enough to fight the entire Council? Dr. Kevin Wright asked. We won't be fighting alone, Admiral Thompson said. The Korthik Rebellion has promised to support us. The Zephyrians are providing intelligence and supplies. And we've made contact with 3 other independent species who are willing to help. Admiral Jake Morrison, who had been quiet during the meeting, finally spoke up. The question isn't whether we can win a war against the Council. The question is whether we can change the nature of the war itself. Over the next several weeks, humanity prepared for the coming conflict with desperate efficiency. Dr. Susan Clark's research teams worked around the clock to produce new weapons and defensive systems. The breakthrough came when Dr. Rachel Murphy discovered how to combine human shield technology with Zephyrian organic materials to create protective barriers that could actually heal themselves during battle. Meanwhile, Colonel Steve Johnson was training human pilots in new tactics that took advantage of their ship's superior speed and maneuverability. Unlike Council ships, which relied on standardized formations and predictable strategies, human vessels were designed to be unpredictable and adaptable. The Council thinks in terms of order and control, Colonel Johnson explained to his pilots. During a training session, Their ships move in perfect formation, following predetermined patterns. We're going to show them what chaos looks like. The intelligence breakthrough came when Lieutenant Commander Ashley Brown intercepted a coded Council transmission. Working with codebreakers from across human space, she managed to decode the message. What they found was both terrifying and encouraging. Operation Cleansing Storm is scheduled to begin in 72 hours, she reported to Admiral Thompson. The attack will target Earth's orbital defenses first, then the shipyards at Luna Station, then the major colonial worlds. But the message also revealed something else. Not all Council species supported the operation. The Valkyrians and 2 other species had expressed concerns about the morality of the attack. There were cracks in the Council's unity. Admiral Thompson immediately began implementing Operation Defiant Shield, the defensive plan that had been developed over the past year. Mobile defense platforms were moved into position around Earth and the major colonies. Fast attack squadrons were deployed to intercept enemy forces before they could reach their targets. Most importantly, the new alliance with the Korthic Rebellion and other independent species was activated. President Santos addressed the human population for what might be the last time as a free species. Her speech was broadcast to every world, every station, every ship in human space. In 72 hours, we will face the greatest challenge in human history, she said, looking directly into the camera. The Council has decided that our freedom is too dangerous to allow. They plan to destroy our ability to reach the stars, to trap us forever in our own solar system. She paused, letting the weight of her words sink in. But they have made a mistake. They think that by isolating us, they made us weak. Instead, they forced us to become strong. They think that by threatening us, they can make us submit. Instead, they have united us in ways we never thought possible. The speech continued with words that would be remembered long after the battle was over. We did not choose this fight, but we will finish it. We will show the galaxy that freedom is not something to be given or taken away by others. Freedom is something we carry inside ourselves, something worth fighting for, something worth dying for. As the countdown to Operation Cleansing Storm began, humanity prepared for battle. But they were not preparing to simply defend themselves. They were preparing to change the galaxy forever. The final message came from Admiral Jake Morrison to the entire human fleet. Remember, we're not just fighting for our own freedom. We're fighting for the freedom of every species that have ever dreamed of something better than the Council's false peace. Today, we show the galaxy what real courage looks like. In deep space, Council fleets began moving toward human space. But they were about to discover that the humans they planned to destroy had become something they never expected: hope for a better galaxy. The Council fleet appeared at the edge of the Sol system like a wave of darkness against the stars. Admiral Nicole Thompson watched from the command bridge of her flagship, Sovereign, as 3,000 alien vessels dropped out of faster-than-light travel. It was the largest military force in galactic history, and it was coming to destroy everything humanity had built. "Contact from the Council fleet," reported Communications Officer Danny Foster. "War Commander Thekmer of the Hegemony is demanding to speak with our leadership." "Put him through," Admiral Thompson replied. She had expected this moment. The Council always offered one last chance to surrender before they attacked. The holographic image of Thekmer appeared in the center of the bridge. He was massive even for his species, covered in thick armor that looked like it had been through 100 battles. His voice was deep and threatening. "Humans," he said, "you have defied the Council for the last time. Surrender now, and your people will be relocated to designated worlds where they can live under proper supervision. Resist, and you will be destroyed." "Admiral." Thompson stood up slowly. Behind her, the bridge crew continued their work, showing no fear despite the overwhelming odds they faced. "War Commander Thekmer, I am Admiral Nicole Thompson of the Human Defense Fleet. We have a message for the Council." She paused, looking directly at the alien commander. "We are not your subjects. We are not your slaves. We are human beings, and we will remain free." Thekmer's expression did not change. Then you have chosen death. The communication ended, and immediately the Council fleet began moving toward Earth. But as they advanced, something unexpected happened. Space around them suddenly filled with new ships as the Korthic Rebellion fleet dropped out of hyperspace. 40 vessels from 7 different species appeared behind the Council forces. At the same time, the Zephyrian Collective arrived from another direction. The organic ships moved like living creatures, flowing through space in patterns that no Council tactical computer could predict. "This is Admiral Jake Morrison to all free forces," came a voice over the communication channels. "Today we fight. Not just for humanity, but for the freedom of every species in the galaxy. Let's show them what courage looks like." The battle began with War Commander Thekmor's flagship firing its main weapons at Earth's orbital defense platforms. The massive energy beams struck the human shields and were absorbed completely, the energy redirected back to power the platform's own weapons. "Impossible," muttered the Hegemony tactical officer. "Their shields are using our own power against U.S." Captain Julie Anderson led the first wave of human fighters against the Council advanced ships. Her squadron of 30 vessels moved in completely unpredictable patterns, striking fast and disappearing before the enemy could respond. The human ships were smaller than the Council vessels, but they were faster and more maneuverable. Fox Squadron. "This is Julie Anderson," she called over the radio. "Remember your training. Hit hard, move fast, and never stay in one place too long." Commander Ben Rodriguez coordinated the defense of Luna Station, humanity's largest shipyard. As Council ships approached, he activated the new defensive arrays that Dr. Susan Clark's team had developed. Instead of just deflecting enemy fire, the arrays captured it and redirected it at other attacking ships. "Their own weapons are fighting against them," Rodriguez reported to Admiral Thompson. "The Council ships can't adapt fast enough to our tactics, but the Council had numbers on their side. For every human ship, there were 10 Council vessels." Slowly, the sheer weight of the attack began to push the human forces back toward Earth. That's when Dr. Rachel Murphy's greatest invention changed everything. From hidden positions throughout the solar system, humanity activated the new energy weapons she had developed. These weapons didn't just fire energy beams. They created cascading overloads in enemy ship systems. War Commander Thekmor watched in shock as entire Council squadrons lost power and began drifting helplessly through space. "What is this weapon?" he demanded of his science officer. "Unknown technology," came the reply. "It appears to cause our ship systems to overload and shut down. We have no defense against it." The tide of battle began to turn. Human ships, working together with their Korthic and Zephyrian allies, started pushing the Council forces back. The coordinated attack that was supposed to destroy humanity in hours was falling apart. From the orbital command station Liberty Station, President Maria Santos watched the battle unfold. She was in direct communication with all human forces, coordinating the defense of their homeworld. "Admiral Thompson," she called over the secure channel, "Council ships are retreating from sectors 7 and 9. Should we pursue?" "Negative." Admiral Thompson replied, "Let them go. We're not conquerors, we're defenders of freedom." The critical moment came when Captain Brandon Smith of the Discovery led a small strike force against War Commander Thekmor's flagship. Using the new shield technology and weapons that had been developed during the isolation, the human ships were able to get close to the massive Council vessel. "This is for New Denver," Captain Smith said as he targeted the flagship's main power core with Dr. Murphy's energy cascade weapon. The beam struck the Hegemony ship and spread throughout its systems like a virus. One by one, the flagship's weapons went offline. Its shields failed, its engines stopped. The most powerful warship in the Council fleet was dead in space. War Commander Thekmor found himself trapped on a powerless ship, watching as his fleet fell apart around him. Species that had fought together for centuries began retreating in different directions. The unity of the Council was breaking. "All Council ships, this is War Commander Thekmor," he broadcast on all frequencies. "Retreat. To safe distance, the attack has failed." As the Council forces pulled back, something remarkable happened. Several alien ships broke away from the retreating fleet and approached the human lines with surrender signals. These were crews who had been forced to fight against their will, species that had been waiting for someone to stand up to the Council. The battle was over, but its effects were just beginning. Across the galaxy, worlds that had been under Council control for centuries heard the news that humanity had defeated the greatest military force in known space. Rebellion spread like wildfire. Admiral Jake Morrison found himself in command of a growing fleet of free species. The Korthic Rebellion had become a full revolution. With dozens of worlds declaring independence from the Council, President Santus addressed the galaxy from Earth. Her words broadcast on frequencies that reached every inhabited world. We did not seek this war, but we finished it. We offer friendship to all species, Council and non-Council alike. But we offer it as equals, not as masters or servants. 5 years later, the galaxy was a very different place. The Council still existed, but it was no longer the absolute authority it had once been. The Free Worlds Alliance, led by humanity but including dozens of species, offered an alternative based on voluntary cooperation rather than forced submission. Admiral Jake Morrison, now serving as humanity's ambassador to the galaxy, worked alongside former enemies to build a new kind of peace. Dr. Lisa Harper had established the Galactic Science Cooperative, where species shared knowledge freely without the restrictions the Council had imposed. The former War Commander Thekimar had become an unlikely ally. After seeing how the Council had lied to his people for generations, he helped establish the truth and reconciliation process that allowed former Council worlds to join the Alliance. "You taught us something important," he told Admiral Morrison during one of their meetings. "True strength comes not from controlling others, but from inspiring them to be free." Captain Julie Anderson now commanded the exploration fleet that was mapping the far reaches of the galaxy, bringing the message of freedom to species that had never heard of either the Council or humanity. The story ended where it began, with a choice. But now it was not just humanity making that choice. Across the galaxy, species were choosing between the safety of control and the risk of freedom. And more they were choosing freedom. The Council had abandoned humanity, thinking they were too dangerous to allow into their perfect order. They had been right about the danger, but wrong about everything else. Humanity had not brought chaos to the galaxy. They had brought hope, and hope, as it turned out, was the most powerful force in the universe.